Hello fishing friends, this is Matthew with Out Fishing 13 bringing you another reel service video. Today I'm going to be working on this Zebco 808. Now this particular model is very similar, it's nearly exactly the same as the ProStaff 888. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And leave any comments below. Let's get started on this. Oh, by the way, today, not only am I going to service this reel, I'm going to super tune it too. We're going to add 3 ball bearings to it, making it a very nice reel and much more durable. Let's get started. Okay, let's talk about what we're going to need to service this 808 Hawg by Zebco. You're going to need a couple screwdrivers, a big screwdriver and a small screwdriver, a little pair of pliers. You're going to need some grease. I like to use this Lucas red grease for my gears. I like to use some oil for bearings. I like to use my tri-flow grease, it's a lighter weight grease for my drag system. Okay, and just as a comparison, these two reels are nearly exactly the same. There's just a few differences on them. One, this has a bigger, heavier duty handle for cranking in. It has 3 ball bearings. It has a different type of anti-reverse system that actually can give you problems. I'll talk about that in another video. Essentially though, they're exactly the same. They have the same frame. This one only has plastic bushings in it, but today we're going to change that. So let me talk about the bushings, the bearings that we have. The bearings I have come from, they're the same size as the bushings in here, so we can replace them without any problems. These are bearings that come from the tackle services for the ProStaff 888. This one does as well. This one right here, these are the 2 handle bearings. And this is a center bearing right here. Plus, the ProStaff comes with these 2 little keepers right here to keep in the bearing. I'll show you where those go. You don't necessarily need these, but since I was ordering these bearings, and this was only like 20 cents, I decided to get one of these and install it with that as well. So let's get started with this project and get this reel serviced. Now this reel is actually really clean, so I don't need to clean out the inside, but I am going to show you all the steps it takes to service this completely. Okay? So the first thing you need to do is you need to take off the front. And just unscrews. Okay. Oh, there is another difference between the 888 and the 808 is the 888 has 2 pickup pins. You can see that this 808 only has 1, but it was actually made to have 2. So take this off, you hold the handle, spin it to the left. Okay, we need to take off the spool off, and to do that you just need a small screwdriver. Put it in here and push this to the side. Okay. It's important, I think, that you keep these in order. This is a keyed washer. And then we got a plastic drag washer here. Okay, then we can take the spool off. Spool is nice and clean. What's this little bit of, and it has a red drag washer in it. So we'll set that aside. And then it has what's called a tapered drag washer. It has a key in it, but it's tapered. It's thicker on the outside and thinner in the middle and cupped on the back side. And the back side goes like this. The flat side goes towards the washer. Then it has another keyed washer, And this is the spring washer. Now on some of these other reels, it doesn't have a key on it. But I'm just going to set this aside so I know that that's the one I want. And then it has the drag gear here. And this is a big drag gear, so you can adjust this from very fine to really tight. It's pretty nice. Most of the reels are only about a third or a half this much for Zebcos. This one has gears nearly 360 degrees all the way around. So we need to take that off. Okay, we got everything on the front taken off. And as you can see, this is really clean on the inside. Okay, now we're ready to take the handle off and take the back off. Now the back doesn't pop off, it's part of the frame, so we have to take the internals out. To do that, you undo your handle screw. Set that aside, take our handle off. Okay, now on this reel, it has a little plastic keeper here and here. And to take this off, all you have to do is, it just needs a little bit of pressure to pry it away from there. So carefully insert your screwdriver right there and just give it a little twist and come to the other side and do the same thing. And then it'll come off. And you see there's a little keeper right there. And it just snaps out. And then this comes off. So here we have a bushing, and then a bushing, your main shaft here, and then your center shaft. Okay. So and here's your bait alert. We don't need to take that apart. If you do need to repair this bait alert, as a little keeper right here that you'd have to take out, okay? And some other little things here that you'd have to take apart. But we don't need to do that on this particular service. Okay, so let's take out these bushings. So there's one bushing there. And it's just a plastic bushing. They made out of nylon. They're durable and tough if they're taken care of. And then to take this one out, we've got to take off this wedged bearing or bushing retainer. The 888 has this feature on it as well. The 733 Hawg has the same feature. Okay, now on this, make sure that when you reinstall it, it has two sides to it. It has a flat side, has a wedged side. The flat side goes against the bushing or against the bearing, like so. If you put it in the other way, it wouldn't work anyhow. Okay, now we can take out this other bushing right here. Now when you take these out, often these have a little a thin shim washer in here. Make sure you don't lose that little shim washer. Oh, it came out pretty fast. Okay, there's the little shim washer. I'm just going to reach in there with my pliers. Carefully remove that. Carefully, I said. Carefully. Okay, there's that. I'm going to set it over in here. Okay, now we're ready to take this main gear out here. Now, one of the things you want to always pay attention to is how the anti-reverse goes back together. If you don't, you'll mess it up and you get really frustrated. But the anti-reverse has some little gears back here, and then it usually has some plastic parts to help that help engage the anti-reverse. So let's take and carefully pull this out and look at it. Okay, now look at this. It has a little plastic thing there and a washer that goes around here and these gears. Now this is one of the differences between an 888 and the 808. This one is actually won't give you problems unless this piece right here breaks, but it shouldn't. So when it goes back together, this little plastic piece right there has to go in to this little spot right there so that when you flip this switch here, it will help engage the anti-reverse or disengage it. And that's all it takes. Okay? But we don't need to service this. We're just going to leave it alone. All right, we'll set that aside. And we're going to take out the center pinion shaft here. It's in really good shape and it has lots of good grease on it. So I'm just going to set it right here where it can stay clean. Then I'm going to reach down in here and get this last bushing out. Well, I can't do that. I'm going to push it out from this side here. There we go. There it is. Okay, so there's the last bushing. So this came with 3 bushings. One small one on the center shaft, and then 2 big ones on the middle shaft. Okay, now we're ready to put these in here. Now, if you're not going to super tune it, which I know most of you won't, just take and make sure that these are good and clean. Make sure that they're not really loose on the shaft. For example, on the center shaft here, make sure that it's fairly snug. If it has a lot of wiggle in it, you're going to need to see if you can get online at Tackle Services and get yourself some new bushings. Now, if you can't find the bushings to buy them, because they may not sell them anymore, you could buy some stainless steel bearings off of eBay or Amazon, and I'll give you the size of these as we install them so we know what size they are. They're metric and they're pretty common, and you should be able to buy these and replace those bushings with bearings, or you can get on Tackle Service and buy the bush bearings that go on an 888 Pro Staff. Okay, so let's put the center one in first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some oil and let the oil soak in. These already come, looks like they have some grease in them already. I'm just going to add some of this really good quantum grease or oil in there. Let it soak in just a bit. Let me give my calipers, and we're going to measure this bearing. I'll give you a size right now. So this is, I've got this set to metric, so I'm going to zero this out. This bearing, you measure the center first, is an 8 by 16 by 5. 8 by 16 by 5 millimeter stainless steel ball bearing. Okay, so we're going to put this on the shaft. Now this is another difference. The Pro Staff will have a brass gear here, which is a little bit tougher. Okay. Looks good. Let's put it back in. Fits perfectly. There we go. Next, we're going to go ahead and take these out. Stick to the metal. Kind of bonds to it. I'm going to go ahead and add some of my really sticky Lucas real red grease to it, to this. It doesn't require a lot, you just want a little bit. Okay, now let's go ahead and put this in. We want to make sure that that little finger right there goes in the slot down there for the anti-reverse. So let's just carefully set this in here. We'll make sure it gets in there just right. Tilt it down. Okay, mine got in there. It's in there. You can see this in there just right. Okay. We'll leave that off for now. Now we're ready to put our bearings in there. Now when we put our bearings in there, we can use the old bushings to seat them in. Make sure this shim is on there. Then we'll put the bearing on. We'll use this. And then our handle screw. And we'll seat it on there. Okay. Now let's do the same for the other side. Okay. Now just for your information, if you do this and you don't have these little bearing retainers, these ones right here, that's like a little cap you screw on there. If you don't have those, realistically, this screw will hold it in place because it screws down tight to it, and when the handle screws on as well, the handle screws down, and this one has the wedged bearing retainer, and then the handle screws down on either side to hold it in there. So realistically, you don't even need them, but I wanted to show you that you can add them. Okay, so the next step is to take this, put that in there. Now I'm checking something here, and I'm going to need to take out that shim. And the reason why is because when this is put on there, it makes it much too tight. And what's happening is the gears are meshing together too tight. I can still turn them, but they're meshed together too tight. So we need to take this out. We'll take this out, and we'll take this little shim out. So there's the shim. We're not going to need that for this particular application. Let's try that. Okay, then take this wedged retainer. Okay, that's better. I can see that it's not going to grind up against there, but it's good and snug the way it should be. Okay, so I'll put this back together. Tighten those down. Okay. All right. Okay, I wanted to just test to make sure I have the anti-reverse on there right, and I do. Okay. Okay. Okay, very good. Okay, now, if you don't have these bearing retainer caps, you're done putting the back together, and you can put it back together and start working on the front. But we're going to put these little bearing retainer caps on here because I have them. And all it does is it sits right on top of this bearing. It has two little self-tapping screws. Okay, we're done with that. We've got this all put back together. It looks like this fell out. Let's put a little bit of grease on this drag gear, the small drag gear, and we'll put it back in there. That's good enough. And it just needs to go in there and line up the little slot and push down there so it's flush down there like that. It should just go on with a little snap like that. Okay, and then you can put your handles in. Okay, there we go. Okay. I would say that that's actually a little bit smoother. Okay, now let's put the drag back together. When you're putting a drag back together, you need to put it back together with some grease. I just saw recently a video with a fellow that was catching some catfish with his, and he was complaining about the drag on his Zebco 33. And the reason why he's probably having problems is because not always are these put together with enough grease, and it'll give you problems. So when you put this back together, this position right there is the lowest setting. So you want to make sure you put it back together with the lowest setting so that when you put the snap ring back on here, the keeper ring, it's not hard because it's got some spring tension on there. And we want to put a little bit of grease on each layer as we put this back together. So the first thing that goes on here is that spring. It's a keyed spring washer. So put that on. And we want to add a little bit of grease. Doesn't require very much. And then we put this keyed tapered drag washer. And then we add a little bit of grease. You know, if you go out and you fight fish and you come back and your reel really went through a lot of work, it's not a bad idea to take this apart every 2 or 3 trips and do some work on these. Okay, now we're ready to put this on here. And we got plenty of grease on the main shaft, but if you need to add some more, just wipe it on there and add some more. Okay, goes on just like that. Then you want to add some grease on the top here. Put on your clean drag washer, add a little bit more grease, and then put on your last keyed washer, and then you're ready to put on your snap ring. There's one way to put these on. It has a little hole right there, or it has a little hole on this side. So it can basically go on either way, but that little hole needs to line up, and so that it can seat in there all the way, just like that, okay? And that's back together. Okay, now if you clean this all up, you need to make sure you add some grease to this mechanism here. Okay, so that it moves freely. Also, this rubs on the top of here, and that cam right there also rubs on the outside of here, so you want to make sure there's plenty of grease on this little piece right there so that cam doesn't wear out. And if this gets dirty, you want to clean it right away, or else it'll wear that down and you'll end up spending $15 for a new cap or throwing your reel away. Okay, I'm going to grab my line here, get my line out. I just want that hanging out so I don't have to fish it out later, and spin this on. You don't have to hold the handle, the anti-reverse should work. I noticed that my spinner cap is a little bit wobbly, but that's really not going to affect the performance at all. Just want to make sure it works. That's going in good. Looks great. Okay. We'll put the cap back on. Well, I actually want to test the drag. Right now I got it out here. Tighten it up. Yeah, it's in good shape. Put that through there. Put the front nose cone back on. And get that on all the way. Yeah, the drag is working great. I'm going to tie my little thing back on. And wipe it down. Okay, so there you go. That's how you service and repair your 808 Hawg that's this particular model, and super tune it by adding 3 bearings to it. And the bearings altogether were about, I think they're about $8. These are a little bit more expensive because they're stainless steel bearings. And but other than that, it's a pretty inexpensive super tune to get basically what's the equivalent now of a Zebco 888 Pro Staff. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a big thumbs up and subscribe by pushing the button right over there. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.